Hello, my name is Marionett, and welcome to the Week 3 CSL Weekly Recaps. Today we are joined by...
Hello.
This is Anthony, coach of the Memphis Mamoswines. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. So Week 3 was filled with some pretty good matches, in my opinion, and I think we should just start it off with the San Diego Wild Chargers versus the BC Bastiodons. The Wild Chargers took a 2-0 victory against the BC Bastiodons. I know you definitely were very opinionated about this match, so I'll just start it off.
So basically what I noticed is that the Wild Chargers didn't really have anything going for them in the start of the game. They were just basically getting destroyed in a sense, but it wasn't until the end, until that Staraptor I'm pretty sure got burned with Facade, and it just swept the rest of the team. And I was watching it, I was happening, and everyone was just freaking out. It was a good one.
The what people are calling it is the misplay that you would have never known. So when the Wild Chargers intentionally got their Staraptor burned by the Entei, the BC Bastiodons thought it was over, but the Wild Chargers just knew in the back of their minds that Staraptor had Facade and it would sweep through the entire team. I think if Machamp had a priority move, he would have been able to stop this and easily win, but it didn't, and that's just something for the BC Bastiodons to consider, especially when they have Pokemon like Entei and Machamp who have access to priority, and he doesn't utilize it. This is kind of the result that he kind of learns from it. But yeah, this was two 2-0 teams going against each other, so it was definitely a very interesting match. All right, so next we have your match, the Washington Weaviles taking on the Memphis Mamoswines. How did you feel coming into this match?
I think it was just because of the team. The whole I tried my best, but I feel like the whole tight matching just didn't work well with me, because I got the Heliolisk was a huge problem, because I couldn't do much with Scyther or Suicune every time he brought the Heliolisk in, and he had the Dark Pulse, which my Claydol managed to take one hit just because I had that I think the Culber Berry, which reduced the dark type attacks. But besides that, the Heliolisk could take out most of my team without an issue.
Yeah, I think you've been playing very well this season. I know you've beaten Dubstep twice before. I think the really big issue is that you really, even though it was very obvious that a lot of Pokemon like Beedrill and Dragonite didn't get as many kills as you'd think, especially against your team matchup, they still put a lot of offensive pressure on your team, which was really what kind of costed you the match. I would say there was a lot of heavy team matchup, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, the full start of this whole season, I've been matched up with some heavy hitters in the start, so hopefully
definitely,
as the season progresses, I'll be given a little break. But actually, I do remember the match with him in season 2. I beat him. I can't remember the score, but he had a Feraligator that didn't have Crunch on it when he had a Dragon Dance set up with him, and just because he lost, he didn't have that last moveset, he just didn't get it.
But it shows that it wasn't a complete blowout despite the score. You two are definitely very evenly matched, so I think it was a very good match nonetheless. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the Detroit Pyroar taking on the Southeast Swablu. The Detroit Pyroar took a 4-0 victory against the Southeast Swablu. I think this was a very interesting match for the Pyroar and a very bizarre match for the Swablu. I'll be honest, the Swablu made some pretty horrible plays late game. I hate to be brutal, but the thing is their only way to deal with Mega Venusaur was Mew, and the Swablus led with Mew, and even though it took the Pyroar to sack 2 of their Pokemon to get the Mew down, Swablu just let the Mew go down and had no answer for Venusaur in the end, and Venusaur just put so much pressure and kept on recovering that Swablu just couldn't do anything.
Actually, he did have Muck. He
did have Muck.
Muck did. It was almost. He almost took half of the HP of the Venusaur with Sludge Bomb, which was interesting.
Gunk Shot.
Gunk Shot. Gunk Shot. Which when I saw was kind of surprising because I would never think of a Mug would do that much damage, but at the same time, after he realized that he didn't do much to maintain Muck, he kind of just let Muck die. Like if Mega Venusaur. If he saved Muck and he managed to take away Mega Venusaur, I feel like he could have gotten it back.
Or she.
Whoops. Yeah. She could have gotten that back because the whole wall of Swoop's team would be down.
Definitely.
So
I think though relying on Muck instead of Mew was also a mistake because Sandslash was also, as you can see by the score, able to really shut down the Muck with its pressure as well.
Yeah, he did. She did.
But I think the match was well played by Zwoops. The match could have been better played by Swablu, but I think we see with the mistakes learned by Swablu that we can see a bit more promise coming out of her. So yeah, any other comments on that match?
Nah, it's whenever you like every time you look at the score at the week chart and you're versing the Detroit Pirate, you're just like, all right, well, I'll just throw in the towel. Time to quit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely a force to be reckoned with. So next we have possibly the biggest upset of the week, which is the Texas Tauros, a 0-2 team, taking a 5-0 victory against an undefeated NJ Flabebe team. This match was, I feel, just a match of just the Flabebe not having answers and not having good enough pressure. I mean, I can't really say that any notable misplays were made. It was just the Tauros constantly just maintaining pressure on the Flabebe. Did you notice any notable plays or anything?
So he did have Crawdaunt with the Swords Dance set up, and usually when you see that, it's kind of daunting because Crawdaunt has the ability adaptability, but Crawdaunt, I think it was, he didn't, I don't think Crawdaunt had Aqua Jet. If he had Aqua Jet with a Swords Dance with adaptability, he could have taken down Landorus, because I feel like that was the Pokemon who knocked him out.
Right.
So, it could have been a bigger, I feel like if he played right with Crawdaunt,
it could have been even bigger.
Yeah, it could have been even bigger. Yeah, he won. I just looked at that.
Yeah, I definitely think that that was a big. I think that Crawdaunt could have definitely done more, but it was a 5-0 victory nonetheless, so it doesn't really matter in the long run.
I switched the scores in my head when I was talking about that.
Yeah, it's all good. Next up, we have another big upset, which is the Calgary Hydro Cannons taking a 3-0 victory over the Magcargo Tel Aviv. This, in my opinion, was the best playing we've seen from Abda in the entire CSL history, not just this season, but the entire history. Abda was able to predict Roost from Zapdos and then Earthquake it to kill with Golurk. That was a definite notable play. He was able to bring in the Nidoking and make the right predictions in terms of that, so he could just pressure the other team. I think Metagross was definitely a big issue for the Hydro Cannons, as evidenced by the score of Metagross getting 3 kills, 1 death, being the only Pokemon in the Magcargo's team to get any kills, but I still think that Nidoking was able to put enough pressure on the team that really Nidoking had literally a move for everything except Seismitoad, but Seismitoad went down first, so I think Nidoking was the MVP of this match. Did you have any other thoughts?
I feel like everyone forgets that whole Roost thing with flying types, that when you send out a flying type and you use Roost, they're no longer the flying type. I feel like everyone doesn't, they see that because that's, they pick Roost and they can read it, but I feel like no one, knows it when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like predicting that was more of lucky than like on the predictions, but like nonetheless he got the win. But I feel like no one remembers that Roost takes away the flying type advantage.
Yeah, and even when they do, it's very risky because, like, you know, if you don't Roost, you just wasted an entire turn where Zapdos could have set up a Tailwind or Toxic to you, or just gotten off an attack. You know, it's incredibly risky. It paid off this time, but you're right, it is an incredibly risky play.
Because he bring in the Zapdos. It was like under 50% health. It was the turn for a Roost. If he was gonna do it any other time, he was gonna do it then because he was going against a Golurk. Like I would have done that. I would have just Roosted and ate the Earthquake.
Yeah. I think another misplay from the Hydro Cannons was them not healing with Mega Slowbro. They could have definitely kept Mega Slowbro as a very, very strong wall against the Magcargo Tel Aviv if they had slack-offed versus the Scrafty. But other than that, like, the Hydro Cannons definitely had a well-deserved win.
I just feel like just the matchups here, like Mega Slowbro and Metagross, who's a hard hitter, but Slowbro completely walls Metagross.
Right.
You have the whole Zapdos and Golurk who completely block each other. It was just he did a really good job with the team building, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So next we have a very fun match between the Syracuse Sylveons and the Zion Zards. Both teams were 0-2, and both teams brought some very interesting sets, notably Aqua Ring Lantern, Destiny Bond Weezing, Toxic Spike Dragalge. We saw some very interesting sets from both sides, but it was ultimately the Sylveons with the Molt Breaker Excadrill, which was able to sweep through the Zards team late game and get 5 kills on top of that, and it was really just what won the match. Any comments you have?
It was he had the Weezing. No, yeah, Zards had the Weezing that set up the Toxic Spikes, and that becomes a huge threat, especially keeping when the game keeps going further and further, because then most of your Pokemon have the Toxic, and now you have to worry about them staying in too long for getting the HP drop from all that. But I feel like I remember seeing in the beginning of the game there was a lot of I saw a lot of hexes going on. Zion Zards did put up a good match, but having Tentacruel and that dragon type poison still up, and with the Excadrill with Earthquake Mold Breaker, Dan knew he had it at the end, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think even though there were a lot of quirks like having 2 air balloon users just for the Excadrill and other things like that, Dan was definitely able to think through turn after turn and be able to pull through. So next we have the 6-0 match of the week, which is the Saugatuck Sandslashes, who are still currently undefeated and the number 1 team in the league, taking on the Houston Haunters, who are 1-1 and now are 1-2. What are your thoughts on this match?
It was interesting. He was just on it all the time. He really had nothing. He didn't let a single thing through. He really just. It was just an interesting thing.
You saw the match was already over when the Houston Haunters kept in a Mega Altaria versus the Crobat. I think even though Mega Altaria was paralyzed, we saw it had the versatility to take on a lot of things on the Sandslashes draft, whether it be Crocodile or Rotomo or Scizor, actually not Scizor, but Rotomo, Crocodile, Mamoswines. It became a very big struggle for the Haunters, just kind of freaking out, trying out different moves to see what would do more on the Crobat, and Classy just defogging to make sure the rocks weren't on his side, which is something he needs to do all the time, which is good. But it was just him defogging, then roosting, and if the Haunters had switched out into something like Raikou or something like Rotom Frost, the match would have definitely still been definitely closer, or at least better played by the Haunters. But keeping in Mega Altaria and letting Crobat put all this pressure on the other team once Altaria was gone just really messed up the Haunters in the end.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments?
No, not really.
All right, cool. Next up, we have the final match, which is the Boston Bisharps versus the Florida Feraligatrs. I know you're very opinionated on this match, so I'll let you start off.
So basically, Akeem from the Boston Bisharps had a very rough time in the beginning of the match because he could not just get around the Florida Feraligatrs. The Florida Feraligatrs were just really on it with everything, with every switch. Gramble had a key role into this just because of the Garchomp and the Garchomp, because he was basically trying to get. At the end of the day, he told me that he needed, his only way to win was the Snorlax, was using Rest, Sleep Talk, Curse, and Crunch because of the team that he has. So if he, it was just a huge upset because the Boston Bisharps have the won 2 seasons, and then having the Snorlax as that set, using it as a last resort, because it's really hard.
Right.
It's really hard to get through that.
Just to clarify, it was the Feraligatrs doing what looked like a complete 6-0 demolishing of the Bisharps until Akeem pulled out Snorlax as the last Pokemon, and this was key because Snorlax could not be, because it was the last Pokemon standing, it could not be roared away by Granbull, so it was able to set up curses and such. And the Feraligatrs not going into some of their other stronger hitters and just letting the Snorlax set up really just left the Feraligatrs in the end relying on crits trying to knock down the Snorlax, but Akeem just kept resting, and Snorlax was able to pull off this this sweep going from 6-1 to 1-0. So it was definitely a very interesting match, to say the least. I think it was like 70 turns.
Yeah, it was something outrageous just because with the Snorlax going.
But definitely like mad props to the Feraligatrs. They played like amazingly to the point where, you know, it was 6-1, and I would say, even though the Bisharps did end up with the victory, and even though they did end up making the right play in order to win, in the end, the Feraligatrs definitely had all of the strong matchups in the play. They had they definitely had all the strong plays in the beginning and definitely outplayed the Bisharps 100%. So
yeah,
Blazin is definitely not to be underestimated.
He will be a huge threat in later games, just because you see his team now and it has some huge threats because Mismagius has Nasty Plot. Latios is already huge with the Dragon Draco Meteor. And Rotom Wash is always a nice threat in the OU tiers. And Ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto he almost got Snorlax with Ditto just because he was scarfed with Ditto, and if he got one more crit with his, he would have won it, but he didn't. So
right.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So we have the Pokemon of the week. This hasn't been in any of the recaps yet, but I figured I'd start including it, as every week there's usually one Pokemon that just goes on a rampage. This week it was obviously Snorlax, who was able to pull off the 6-0 sweep against the Florida Feraligatrs, making possibly the biggest comeback in the history of the CSL for the Boston Bisharps. But that's pretty much what happened. We pretty much covered that entirely. For the top killers, we can see an entire shift in the Pokemon. I don't think any of these three were in the top last week, but all three did very, very well this week. Tornadus, Therian being able to clean up the match with the Saugatuck Sandslashes against the Haunters. Staraptor being able to also make a huge comeback versus the BC Bastiodons with the Facade, and the Snorlax, obviously. Curselax able to set up and sweep through the Feraligatrs. Any comments on any of these three Pokemon?
I think it was outstanding to watch the Staraptor get in with the Facade with the burn. I feel like that was really good fun to watch, just because he would have lost if it wasn't for that Staraptor.
Definitely. I think that the Bastiodons were outplaying Realies 100% of the time, but in the very end, Staraptor got burned and was able to sweep through the Bastiodons team. And you honestly think about it, when it came to playing, the Bastiodons were outplaying the Wild Chargers, but when it came to team building, the Wild Chargers always knew they had it in the bag. So next up, we have the predictions and next week's matchups. We're starting out with Akeem and the Boston Bisharps taking on the NJ Flabebe. So what we're going to do is for each match, we're just going to swap in order of who goes first, who goes second, just keep things fair. We'll see if we agree, we'll see if we disagree. So our first match is the Boston Bisharps, who are currently undefeated 3-0, taking on the NJ Flabebe, who has just suffered a huge loss, but are still 2-1, so definitely very viable for playoffs. Plus, it's only week 3, so I think that I have to give this match to the Bisharps. They've definitely been playing very well, obviously shown by the record. They definitely, even if they're losing 6-2, they definitely always see a way to win in the end. And I think the NJ Flabebe just don't have what it takes to shut down the Bisharps' offensive pressure. What are you thinking?
Well, I had a huge problem with Flabebe. I lost to them, which, I mean, it's fine because they're also both in my division.
Right.
So, they're both now they're both going for
this top spot.
Yeah, the top spot in their division. I feel like people like Flabebe, whoever else who now challenges the Bisharps, they need to start thinking a little bit more about their special attackers, because if they think that he's gonna bring Snorlax with him, they need to really think of, okay, I'm not going to assume that every match he brings Snorlax, he's going to have that kind of set on him, but the only way to get around that Snorlax, if Akeem's in that position where he has that Snorlax with that set, you really need to rely on those special attackers. It's like there's nothing to worry about with speed, just because Snorlax is slow, and especially with Curse, but a hard-hitting special attack will do it.
Yeah. So who are you predicting to have the win?
I guess I'm gonna have to. I'll give it to the Boston Bisharps
Okay, cool.
I mean, just because I know him personally, and as of right now, every match that he's put in, he's figured a way out of it. So he is against a tough opponent, but if he plays how he usually plays, he should have it'll be challenging, but he'll have it.
Yeah, so next up we have the Houston Haunters, who are 1-2 and just suffered a loss, versus the Zion Zards, who also just suffered a loss but are 0-3 and yet to pick up a win. Who do you think is going to win this one?
Well, we can no longer say third time's the charm, but you have to. They're gonna really put some effort into this. They're gonna really try and get the best possible team for the Houston Haunters, and the Houston Haunters are only 1-2. So it's not that it's a huge disadvantage for the Zion Zards. It's almost pretty much even, but the Zion Zards are really, I feel like they're really gonna pack a punch because they're looking for that first win.
Yeah. So who are you predicting for the win on this?
The Zion Zards.
Definitely. Cool. I'm definitely agreeing with you. I think the Zion Zards win this one in what I will assume to be their best match yet. They've had 3 very tough opponents so far. I think that the Zards have definitely had some creative team building and have been actually to pull some cool stuff off with it. I think if they really buckle down and look at the opponent's team and try some things that the other opponent wouldn't even think of, then the Zards definitely can have it for this match. The Haunters just came off of a huge loss, and I don't see them recovering immediately after that. So next up we have the BC Bastiodons taking on the Syracuse Sylveons. The BC Bastiodons are 2-1 and the Sylveons are 1-2. This is essentially the fight for the second place in the Platinum Division. The Sylveons being in third and the Bastiodons being in second, but if the Sylveons take down the Bastiodons, then the Bastiodons will drop to third and the Sylveons will raise to second, if that makes sense. I'm going to say the Sylveons win this one, just because I think that the Bastiodons coming off of a rough loss, a very strange loss. They're going to be a little thrown off edge. They're going to be a little they're going to be a lot less confident in their playing, I think. Just I know for a fact when you come off a loss like that, you really think like, ooh, can I burn this thing if it has facade, you know? So I definitely think that the Bastiodons might overpredict a lot, and I know the BC Bastiodons don't have the greatest predicting skills, so I think the Sylveons are able to come up on this match. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like the Sylveons will win this one, just because like the Bastiodons, they can throw every Pokemon they bring in there. They'll have a balloon. Like, he can have every balloon on every Pokemon, and I feel like the Sylveons, they'll figure out a way out around it, and because he wants a second place. He wants to go to the finals, and he wants to win.
Yeah, definitely. So next we have the Florida Feraligatrs versus the Magcargo Tel Aviv. Both came off big losses for them, I guess, just because Magcargo came off a huge upset, breaking their undefeated streak, and the Feraligatrs came off a match that they definitely thought was theirs until the very end. But I think I'm going to give this match to the Magcargo. I think just as a player, Alfahora is definitely just is a better player than Feraligatrs. I think that team matchup's pretty even. No one really has not that I see, no one really has a Pokemon that just really destroys through the entire team. I definitely think each team has a way to handle each Pokemon on each team, so I just think based on skill level and based on what we've seen so far this season, the Magcargo Tel Aviv take it.
So I'm going to disagree with you, because after seeing that 6-0 from the Boston Bisharps, the Feraligatrs are just kind of fed up, and they're like, I'm not going to want to see this happen again. Just because I feel like the Feraligatrs, they played really well on their match, and I mean, like, they were on point with every move that they did against the Boston Bisharps. But I will say I do agree with you about the Alphores. I mean, no, the Magcargo Tel Avivs, they were kind of like a rough. They were a rough team last season.
Mm-hmm.
But
10-2, yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like it'll be an interesting match because they're picking it up. But I'm going to give it to the Feraligatrs just because the last game against Boston Bisharps, it was just really good. They were really good.
Right. Fair enough. Next up, we have the Detroit Pyroar taking on the San Diego Wild Chargers, a fight for the first place of the Emerald Division. I am going to go for the Wild Chargers on this one. I think the Wild Chargers definitely have just a lot more creativity than the Pyroar this season. Even though the Pyroar are a huge force to be reckoned with, I think the Wild Chargers are out for some revenge. I think they're on a streak that definitely is not going to be broken easily. So I think the Wild Chargers just take this one in terms of just the pressure they've been having throughout the league. The Pyroar have not had as big of victories as they've had so far, so as they've had in previous seasons. So I think Weaviles, who's definitely on his A game, can take this victory.
I'll have to agree with you. Even though the Detroit Pyroar are kind of it's a force to be reckoned with. It's a hard, like, that 2-1 this early in the season. I remember they were like last season when I first started, they were just like, if I was matched up with her, I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah, top team in the league in season 3.
But the Wild Chargers does have a 3-0, and Detroit Pyroar is a really challenging team. I feel like it will be an interesting match but I mean, I will give it to the Wild Chargers just because they want to keep that the record going.
All right. Next we have the Washington Weaviles, who just came off of a win facing the Texas Tauros, who also just came off a win. Both these teams were 0-2 and came off big wins. So how are you thinking this one will go?
I don't really know. They're both. I feel like it's anyone's game. I can't pick. I don't know. It's gonna be tough.
Take a guess.
Oh Jesus. Let's just get lucky, and I'll say the Weaviles just because. Who knows? Maybe.
Who knows?
They're both 1-2. But let's see the Weaviles outplay the Tauros.
Yeah, I definitely think the Weaviles, with new additions on their team, have created a much better team. I have to say, like, the Weaviles had a very underrated team. Or not even underrated. The Weaviles, I'll be honest, had a pretty bad team. But with the addition of Dragonite and extra versatility and such, the Weaviles definitely have upped their team building potential. And it feels weird for me to say this because I was always saying the Weaviles would get out-tiered, but I honestly think the Tauros are going to get out-tiered by the Weaviles. So I definitely have to give this match to the Washington Weaviles and Dubstep Penguin. The next match we have is the Southeast Swablu, who is 0-3, taking on the Saugatuck Sandslashes, who are 3-0, coming off a 6-0 victory. I have to give this to the Sandslashes hands down. I mean, if they're losing anytime soon, I don't think it's going to be to the Southeast Swablu. We've seen how they've been playing just very... They haven't been on their A game recently, and, you know, if they're hitting heavy hitters like this... If they've taken a harsh loss to a team that the Sandslashes have already beaten this season, I think the Sandslashes could do even more to them. So I don't see a way for Swablu to win. It would have to be a big, massive upset. I just don't think the Swablu have any sort of way to deal with a lot of the Volturn on Sandslash's team, especially with just Swablu's knowledge and skill level compared to Classy.
So. I mean, of course, I have to give it to the Sandslash just because they're 3-0 and 0-3, and because like I see Swablu in like going around, and it's just she always just kind of like puts herself down. She isn't like the most confident person. I think, and I feel like that's gonna factor a lot into this match, especially just because she's 0-3 and she's going against a 3-0. Maybe it turns out that she pulls a trick out of her sleeve and she just upsets the whole week and everyone goes crazy. But I don't see that happening just because it's scary going up against someone who's 3-0 when you're 0-3. So who knows what will happen?
Yeah. So for the final match, we're not going to make any predictions for this one, but you can definitely tell us how you feel. It's you, the Memphis Mamoswines, taking on the Calgary Hydro Cannons. So how are you just feeling about going into this match?
I feel like I put a lot of thought into my draft just because I was the last pick. And because I was last pick, and I had first picks for OU, UU, and RU. So I gave myself a really defensive team for the sole reason that I know that if my defense is there, because I have a nice Mega, which is Mega Deontay, who's a hard hitter. Yeah. I haven't been utilizing the whole core I've made myself. So if I feel like if I pick up my core and I really try to bring it alive, because I do have Umbreon who's a cleric who can heal it up the core. So it's an interesting combo that I picked up. Not the most hard hitting, but I feel like it's an interesting one. Even though
I think this is your first match this season where you have team matchup against the other team. Like, records aside, like just team being shown against team, you have ways to cover both the Blissey Slowbro core and ways to cover both the Sylveon Magnezone core. So honestly, I think you can definitely put in some if you put in some effort, you definitely have potential to win. So
We will see.
best of luck to you.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for more CSL updates. This has been Marionette and Anthony. I'll see y'all later.